G'day and welcome back for more Space Engineers. Today we're going to be taking a look at the services terminal block. What this allows us to do is to store certain grids in the block so that then we can retrieve them at that block or another services terminal later in order to give us performance benefits or just PCU limits benefits, or really just to be able to conveniently store or transport grids that we want to move around. So the way this works is if we access our services terminal block here and see our stored grids on this page, and then click across this tab with our active grids, we can see the ones that are here. We've got 3 cement mixers, 1, 2, 3, and 1 dump truck. We're going to store that dump truck to begin with. And if we click on it here, click on active grids, select it, and click send to storage. This is going to send it to storage, freeing up PCU and blocks. This is excellent if you're anything like me, who tends to build a lot of vehicles for a lot of things and then doesn't really use those vehicles all that often, each individual vehicle. So if I stored all these, like I'm about to do now, those, cheeky dog, those are not going to be chewing up my system resources while they're not in use. Alright, old yeller, round we go. If I now want to use that dump truck again, we can go to our services terminal, select our stored grid, and click Retrieve from Storage. The dump truck tray will now be retrieved from storage. The amount of time it takes to retrieve this from storage is going to be dependent on your game settings. If you select your save game, click Edit Settings, click Advanced, scroll down to the Miscellaneous section, and then in this grid storage retrieval time, you can choose from a few options. You can click so it's disabled, so you can just pop things out and in, no worries. That's going to be useful for most people playing single player. There's not really any reason for you to want to force yourself to wait. And then slow, moderate, or fast. Default is moderate. I'm going to change this to disabled so that we can do some quick testing so that I can show you a few different nuances about the way this behaves. Another option you'll notice here for our retrieval is allow items in stored grids. If this is unchecked, when you go to store a grid, it will give you a warning pop up. As you can see, this grid has items stored in its inventories. Do you wish to proceed? Yes. And now we have our temporary container. Make sure you do collect this, because if you don't, this will delete itself in a fairly short amount of time, so important to collect it early. So now we have our dump truck in storage. And to retrieve it, click Retrieve from Storage, and because we've now set this to instant, it'll pop out instantly. Somewhere nearby. Let's see if we can spot it. There it is. Now, if you're not happy with that sort of respawning, as in space, it's probably not an issue, but on a planet, it might be. You can specify the location a bit more particularly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put down one of these services terminals here. I'm then going to walk up to the screen, right click to open the control panel and find precision mode. I'm going to activate that checkbox, and then I'm going to move this marker that we can see to where that truck is. There we go. That looks pretty good to me. Might move it 1 block further forward. So we can now go and store our dump truck. Send to storage. Yes. And it's cleared. Then we go and retrieve it. Retrieve from storage. Except it's going to say that the area is occupied. And please clear the deployment area of obstructions. This looks clear from obstructions, but because we've got subgrids and we've got wheels, the game wants a little bit more space beneath it to have a safe spot. So what we're going to need to do is lift this up 1 block, and then we should be able to spawn it in. Control click on this slider, press 1, and now it should work. So if we again select it, select retrieve, yes, it pops in and lands pretty much exactly where I wanted it. I might need to move that a little bit closer so it doesn't land on the dirt. Something else the astute of you may have noticed while I was doing this is that the name for my dump truck is a little bit unusual. It's called dump truck tray. And that's because the name of the grid that's shown in this list is the name of the grid in that entity that has the most number of blocks. So in my case for this truck, that's this tray. So if I go to this control panel and go to info, you can see this is dump truck tray. But if I go around to my cockpit and go to my info here, it's dump truck body. Because the body has fewer blocks than the tray is what takes the dominant name. If you've decided to build something that you want to store that has multiple grids like this, you are going to need to go in and find which of the parts has the most blocks. We can do that relatively easily by going into one part, naming it, see if the name shows up in the list. And if it doesn't, and it shows something more like small grid, it's going to be one of the other ones. Or if you go into each grid and check info, you can see the number of blocks. This one has 5 blocks. This one has just 3. So the one with 5 blocks is going to be the one that gets the name. So we'd have to name this one to battery test. Click OK, and then this one is going to show up in the list as battery test, and then we can store it. Speaking of names though, you may also have noticed that when I go to this list, these cement mixers are all the same. I don't know which one I'm going to store when I click it. So it's going to become increasingly important if you're going to use this to make sure you name things appropriately and individually so that you know which one is which. You may also have noticed that while I have seen the trucks in this list, I don't see the base. So we've got active grids, we've got the 4 trucks, but we have no base, nor do we have this grid, which is a rotating sign that's attached to the base via a rotor. So anything attached via rotor, piston, hinge is going to be counted as part of that entity. But if it's connected via connector, as this yellow mixer is, it will still count. So let's store the yellow mixer. Send to storage. Grid cannot be stored, please undock all connected grids. So you can't store anything that's got a connector lock on it. Critical. There we go, unlocked, and sent to storage. If you have an internal parking area like this, it may become a little bit tricky to get things to spawn in. So let's try that precision mode here and see if we can get this one to work. I've got it set in the air, roughly here. Let's see if this truck can be stored. So we'll store the blue one, send to storage, yes, and just for something different, let's retrieve the yellow one. But unfortunately, because our roof is so close, it's not going to work here. If I, however, were to try and store a grid this small, grid, small grid, send to storage, yes, it should work just fine. Because it does take into account the size of the grid it's trying to respawn. And unfortunately, this warehouse is just not quite big enough for us to respawn inside, so we'd want to put all of our storage outside so that we can retrieve them and then park them back in there. And this is something you may need to take into account when designing your grids to store things appropriately. One of the other things that this block allows us to do is actually move a grid. So I stored the yellow mixer using that services terminal block. I can go to any other services terminal block and retrieve it. And it will retrieve into this area somewhere. There it is, behind the warehouse. Because I didn't set that one up to be specific. For any of you who are like me and play really long-term saves where you have lots and lots of things built up, some of which you haven't used in a very long time, this is going to be an incredibly useful block. For those of you who play on servers, who need to keep performance friendly for various reasons, this is going to be useful for you as well. Honestly, I think this is one of those great blocks that just, 1, reminds us to name our grids. 2, means that we're going to have better performance, and you can kind of just make garage doors and just put the block inside and just kind of hide it, I reckon. If you discover any other cool uses for this block, let me know. And if you've got anything you'd really like to see a guide on, let me know as well. Otherwise, there's plenty more to come, and I will see you then.